Okay, so when we multiply fractions, we have 2/5 times 3/4. Remember, this is easy peasy. We just go straight across numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So 2 times 3 is 6. 5 times 4 is 20. So I have 6/20, and then I can simplify that by dividing both by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 20 divided by 2 is 10. So 2/5 times 3/4 is 3/10. Now, if there would have been a negative in there, you still do the same thing. If that was negative 2/5 times 3/4, we would do negative 2 times 3, which is negative 6, and then 5 times 4, which is 20. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3, and 20 divided by 2 is still just 10, so it would be a negative 3/10. So don't forget your negative rules when you are multiplying. Now let's look at multiplying fractions if there is a mixed number. So I have 1 1/4 times 1/2. Before I can multiply straight across, I need to turn this mixed number into an improper fraction. So I'm going to do the denominator times the whole number and then add the numerator. So 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So that's 5/4 times 1/2. Remember, straight across, easy peasy. 5 times 1 is 5. 4 times 2 is 8. 5/8 would be my answer. Same rules apply if there was a negative in there. Negative 1 1/4 just means this whole amount is a negative. So once you changed it into your improper fraction, remember, stick your negative sign on the numerator so it's a little more friendly to work with. Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5, and then 4 times 2 is 8. Still negative 5/8. Let's look at one more example. So we have 3 1/5 times 2 3/4. Let's also think about reasonableness. So this is about 3, a little more than 3, times almost 3. 2 3/4 is almost 3. So I know that 3 times 3 is 9. So my answer should be around 9. So just kind of think of that as you are working through to make sure you come up with something that's reasonable. So we're going to change this into an improper. 5 times 3 plus 1. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16/5 times 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11. 11/4, your denominator stays the same. Okay, so I have to do 16 times 11, straight across, straight across. Okay, I know 16 times 10 is 160, and then I can just add one more set of 16, so that, add. So that's 176, so 176 on the numerator for now. 5 times 4 is 20. So I have 176/20. I need to simplify that because I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's close to 9 like it's supposed to be. So we want to think about how many 20s are in 176. So I know that 20 times 5 is 100. And I know that 20 times 3 is 60. Hopefully you guys can still see that. So that would be 160. And if I add another 20 on, I'm gonna go over 176. So I have 5 and 3. So that's 8 times that 20 goes into 176. So 8 is my whole number. And then 20 is still my denominator. And from 160, I've got 16 left over. So 8 and 16/20. I can simplify that by dividing by 4. So it would be 8 and, ooh, can you still see? Okay. Divide by 4. So that would give me 4/5. That would be 8 and 4/5. Look, it's almost 9, right? So it turns out that it is a reasonable answer. Again, if this was negative, we do the same thing. Actually, let's make them both negative. So if I had negative 3 and 1/5 times negative 2 and 3/4, I would still go through all the steps I just did, and then I would just make sure, okay, that's negative 16/5 times negative 11/4. Negative times a negative is a positive. So I'm gonna leave this as 176/20, right? And then just straight across the bottom. So it's still gonna be a positive answer if, again, we had 2 negative factors. So don't forget your negative rules when you are working with multiplying fractions. Lots of steps to remember, but also think about reasonableness to help you know if you are right once you solve it.